The boardroom fell silent the moment Victor Caldwell said her name. Alina. 20 executives slowly turned their heads toward the assistant standing near the door. No one spoke, because assistants were never invited to board meetings. Victor leaned back in his chair, his calm gray eyes fixed on her. "Come inside," he said. Alina hesitated. Something about the way the executives stared at her felt wrong, but she stepped forward anyway. And that was the moment everything quietly began to change. Something about the way the executives stared at her felt wrong, but she stepped forward anyway. And that was the moment everything quietly began to change. If you enjoy dramatic relationship stories filled with secrets and betrayal, consider subscribing for more. 8 months earlier, Alina Morales had believed she had found the perfect job. Caldwell International was one of the most powerful companies in the city, and somehow, despite being relatively unknown, she had been hired as the personal assistant to its legendary CEO, Victor Caldwell. Caldwell International was one of the most powerful companies in the city, and somehow, despite being relatively unknown, she had been hired as the personal assistant to its legendary CEO, Victor Caldwell. The man had a reputation that intimidated even senior executives. Brilliant, ruthless, emotionally distant. Most assistants lasted 3 months before quitting, but Alina stayed, not because the job was easy, but because Victor treated her differently. He rarely spoke more than necessary, yet he trusted her with confidential schedules, private meetings, sensitive documents. Sometimes he would look at her as if measuring something invisible. Brilliant, ruthless, emotionally distant. Most assistants lasted 3 months before quitting, but Alina stayed not because the job was easy, but because Victor treated her differently. He rarely spoke more than necessary, yet he trusted her with confidential schedules, private meetings, sensitive documents. Sometimes he would look at her as if measuring something invisible. At first, Alina believed it was simply professional scrutiny, but small details slowly began to disturb her. Meetings appeared on Victor's calendar that were never logged officially. Phone calls arrived from private numbers that he refused to explain. And sometimes he asked Alina strange questions that had nothing to do with work. Meetings appeared on Victor's calendar that were never logged officially. Phone calls arrived from private numbers that he refused to explain. And sometimes he asked Alina strange questions that had nothing to do with work. One evening, as the office floor emptied and the city lights flickered outside the windows, Victor paused beside her desk. "Alina," he said calmly. "Yes, Mr. Caldwell." He studied her for a moment. "Your father, what did he do for a living?" The question caught her off guard. "He was an engineer." Victor nodded slowly. Then he walked back into his office. Alina stared after him, but that wasn't the moment she became suspicious. The real question came 2 weeks later. One afternoon, Daniel Reeves from accounting approached her in the break room. He leaned quietly against the counter. "Alina, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Daniel lowered his voice. "How did you get hired here?" Alina laughed lightly. "I applied online like everyone else." Daniel didn't smile. "You skipped 3 interview stages." Her smile faded. "That's not possible." "I checked the hiring records," Daniel said quietly. "You were approved directly by Victor Caldwell." Daniel didn't smile. "You skipped 3 interview stages." Her smile faded. "That's not possible." "I checked the hiring records," Daniel said quietly. "You were approved directly by Victor Caldwell." Alina felt a chill move through her chest. Why would he do that? Daniel hesitated. Then he said something unexpected. "Did you know someone in this company before you applied?" "No." Daniel looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" "Why?" Daniel rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "Because someone with your last name used to work here." Alina frowned. "My last name?" Daniel nodded. "Morales." The word seemed to hang in the air. Alina shook her head. "That must be someone else." Daniel didn't look convinced, but he didn't push further. Still, the conversation lingered in her mind long after he left. Days later, curiosity finally got the better of her. While Victor was in a meeting across town, Alina quietly accessed the company archive system. She typed a single name into the search field: Carlos Morales, her father. The screen loaded slowly, and then a file appeared. Employee record, position, executive assistant to CEO, years active, 1988 to 2003. Alina's breath caught in her throat. Her father had never told her he worked here, but the real shock came when she opened the final document in the file, a resignation letter, signed by her father, and beneath it, a handwritten message from Victor Caldwell. "Thank you for your loyalty." Alina stared at the screen in disbelief. Her father had died in a car accident shortly after that year. Why had he never mentioned this job? And why had Victor Caldwell hired her? The answer arrived sooner than she expected. That evening, the board meeting began. Executives filled the long glass conference table. Alina remained near the door, organizing files as usual. But the tension in the room felt unusually heavy. Financial documents were passed around the table. Large numbers, transfer requests, company assets. Then something strange happened. Victor looked directly at Alina. "Alina," he said calmly, "bring the financial report." Several executives exchanged quick glances. One of them, a man named Harrison Cole, frowned slightly. "Why does the assistant have those documents?" Victor didn't answer. Alina handed the report to him. Victor opened it slowly. Then he slid it across the table toward Harrison. "You may want to explain these transactions." Harrison's expression tightened. "I'm not sure what you mean." Victor's voice remained calm. "For shell companies receiving company funds over the past 6 years." The room grew quiet. Alina felt her pulse rising, because she recognized the names. They were the same companies she had accidentally discovered in archived financial files. Victor continued, "And all of them approved by members of this board." Murmurs spread across the table. Harrison leaned forward. "You're accusing us of something serious." Victor's eyes remained steady. "I'm stating facts." Alina suddenly realized something. Victor hadn't just asked her to attend this meeting. He had placed her exactly where she could hear everything. Then Harrison said something that made the room go completely still. "You don't have proof." Victor slowly turned his chair toward Alina. "Alina." She looked at him. "Yes." Victor gestured toward the recorder sitting quietly in her notebook. "Play the recording." The room froze. Alina pressed the button, and suddenly voices filled the room. Executives discussing hidden accounts, secret transfers, plans to move millions out of the company. Every word clearly recorded. Harrison's face went pale. "You planned this." Victor stood slowly. "Yes." He turned toward Alina. "For 20 years I've been waiting to expose the people who destroyed the man who once protected this company." Alina felt her breath catch. "My father." Victor nodded. "He discovered their theft years ago, and they made sure he never spoke again." Silence filled the boardroom. "But they never realized something," Victor continued. "They made one mistake." He looked directly at Alina. "They forgot he had a daughter." The truth settled slowly across the room. Victor had hired her intentionally, not as an assistant, but as the final witness to a plan that had taken 2 decades to complete. Looking back, the signs had been there from the beginning. The unusual hiring process, Victor's quiet questions about Alina's father, the trust he placed in someone he barely knew. He had been rebuilding a broken truth piece by piece, like father, like daughter, without realizing it. Alina had also been quietly recording key conversations during meetings, preserving the very voices that would later confirm the corruption. But what Alina didn't realize at the time was that for months she had been organizing the financial records Victor needed. Every transfer, every meeting schedule, every internal email had passed through her hands. Without knowing her father was involved in this before, she had already built the evidence Victor needed to expose the board. And in the end, the daughter of the man who once tried to expose corruption had unknowingly helped finish what he started. Sometimes justice moves slowly, but when it finally arrives, it brings the past with it. Secrets may stay hidden for years, but the truth always waits for the right moment and the right person to come back to the surface. What would you do if you discovered your entire career had been part of someone's hidden plan? Would you feel betrayed or honored? Let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe for more cinematic stories like this. Thanks for watching.
I saw